From Aberdeen's shadows, birth of a band. The forests and mists of Aberdeen, Washington held a special kind of silence, a silence pregnant with unspoken emotions, with the weight of unrealized dreams, and probably a few unsolved mysteries. It was from this isolation, this fertile ground of introspection, that Nirvana emerged. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, if the phoenix had a penchant for flannel and existential dread. The year was 1987, a time when hairspray and synthesizers dominated the airwaves, when rock music seemed to have lost its raw, primal scream and its dignity. Kurt Cobain, a young man haunted by his own demons and fueled by a passion for music's raw power, sought solace in the chords of his guitar. Because therapy was too mainstream, he found kindred spirits in Chris Novoselic, a bassist who shared his love for the Melvins' sludgy riffs and Black Sabbath's dark majesty, and who also had nothing better to do. Together, they embarked on a journey, a quest to give voice to the angst and alienation brewing beneath the surface of their generation. Because someone had to. Their early jam sessions were filled with a chaotic energy, a potent mix of punk rock fury and melodic sensibility, and a lot of noise complaints. They experimented with different drummers, a revolving door of rhythm that mirrored the instability of their early days and their commitment issues. But through it all, Cobain's songwriting shone through. Like a beacon of hope in a sea of teenage angst, his lyrics, raw and confessional, spoke of a deep-seated pain, a longing for something more than the mundane realities of their small-town existence, and a desperate need for a decent cup of coffee. Little did they know that their music, born in the damp basements and makeshift studios of Aberdeen, would soon resonate with millions across the globe and make them wish they had invested in better soundproofing. They were just kids, after all, united by a shared love for music that was loud, raw, and unapologetically honest, and a mutual disdain for authority. But destiny, it seemed, had other plans. Because life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. Early gigs and grunge roots, finding their sound in the underground. The burgeoning grunge scene in nearby Seattle became Nirvana's proving ground, a place where dreams were made and eardrums were shattered. They cut their teeth in the city's dimly lit clubs, sharing stages with bands like Mudhoney, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains. Because nothing says we've made it like playing next to a guy who hasn't showered in a week. These were nights fueled by cheap beer and a shared sense of rebellion, where the music pulsed with a raw energy that defied the polished sounds of mainstream rock. It was like a middle finger to the establishment, but with more guitar solos. Nirvana's music, a potent cocktail of punk rock aggression and pop-infused melodies, began to find its audience, mostly people who thought deodorant was optional. Cobain's voice, a tortured rasp, that veered between vulnerability and visceral screams, became their sonic signature. It was like listening to an angel who'd smoked a pack a day. His lyrics, introspective and laced with dark humor, resonated with a generation struggling to find their place in a world that seemed increasingly indifferent to their struggles. Because nothing says "I get you" like a song about feeling like a mosquito. Word of mouth spread like wildfire through the underground music scene, faster than a rumor about free beer. Nirvana's live shows became legendary, fueled by Cobain's unpredictable stage presence, and the band's raw, unbridled energy. It was like watching a train wreck, but in a good way. Their music wasn't polished or pretentious. It was a visceral expression of their collective frustration, their shared longing for authenticity in a world obsessed with artifice. Think of it as the musical equivalent of a well-aimed spitball. The songs were catchy, yet abrasive, familiar yet unsettling, like a lullaby sung by a chainsaw. Nirvana was a paradox, a band that embraced both the darkness and the light, the beautiful and the brutal. They were the musical equivalent of a black velvet painting. And the world, it seemed, was starting to take notice. Because who doesn't love a good underdog story, especially one with a killer soundtrack? Bleach and the buzz before the storm, a glimmer of the future. In 1989, Nirvana released their debut album, Bleach, on the independent label Sub Pop Records. Recorded on a shoestring budget and fueled by the band's raw energy, Bleach became an unexpected success within the underground music scene. It was a raw and unpolished diamond, a testament to the band's burgeoning talent and their unwavering commitment to their unique vision. Songs like Blue, About a Girl, and School showcased Cobain's songwriting prowess, his ability to craft songs that were both catchy and confrontational. The album's success, while modest by mainstream standards, sent ripples through the music industry. It was a sign that the times were changing, that audiences were hungry for something real, something that spoke to the anxieties and alienation of a generation on the brink of a cultural shift. Major labels, sensing a shift in the cultural tides, began to court the band. Nirvana, wary of compromising their artistic integrity, carefully navigated the treacherous waters of the music industry. They eventually signed with Geffen Records, a decision that would change their lives in the face of popular music forever. The stage was set, the pieces in place. Nirvana, the band from the rainy backwater of Aberdeen, was about to unleash a sonic earthquake that would shake the foundations of the music industry and resonate for generations to come. The world, however, was not prepared for the cultural tsunami that was about to be unleashed. Bleach and the buzz before the storm, a glimmer of the future. In 1989, Nirvana released their debut album, Bleach, on the independent label Sub Pop Records. Recorded on a shoestring budget and fueled by the band's raw energy, Bleach became an unexpected success within the underground music scene. It was a raw and unpolished diamond, a testament to the band's burgeoning talent and their unwavering commitment to their unique vision. Songs like Blue, About a Girl, and School showcased Cobain's songwriting prowess, his ability to craft songs that were both catchy and confrontational. The album's success, while modest by mainstream standards, sent ripples through the music industry. It was a sign that the times were changing, that audiences were hungry for something real, something that spoke to the anxieties and alienation of a generation on the brink of a cultural shift. Major labels, sensing a shift in the cultural tides, began to court the band. Nirvana, wary of compromising their artistic integrity, carefully navigated the treacherous waters of the music industry. They eventually signed with Geffen Records, a decision that would change their lives in the face of popular music forever. The stage was set, the pieces in place. Nirvana, the band from the rainy backwater of Aberdeen, was about to unleash a sonic earthquake that would shake the foundations of the music industry and resonate for generations to come. The world, however, was not prepared for the cultural tsunami that was about to be unleashed. Smells Like Teen Spirit. The anthem of a generation, or as some might call it, the soundtrack to teenage existential dread. The opening chords of Smells Like Teen Spirit crashed onto the radio waves like a sonic boom, a primal scream against the polished veneer of mainstream music. It was like a musical middle finger to the establishment. It was a song born of frustration, of teenage angst and rebellion. But its message resonated far beyond the confines of adolescence. It was like the anthem for everyone who ever wanted to flip a table and walk out. It became an anthem for a generation hungry for authenticity, for music that reflected the raw emotions simmering beneath the surface of their lives. Basically, it was the musical equivalent of shouting, "I hate you, Mom," and slamming the door. The song's iconic music video, a chaotic high school pep rally that descended into glorious anarchy, became a cultural touchstone. It was like every teenager's dream of what school should be, total chaos. It captured the zeitgeist of the early 1990s, a time when the cynicism and disillusionment of the post-Reagan era collided with the burgeoning energy of alternative culture. Think of it as the perfect soundtrack for rolling your eyes at everything. Smells Like Teen Spirit wasn't just a song. It was a cultural phenomenon. It was like the universe's way of saying, hey, it's okay to be a mess. It topped the charts worldwide, propelling Nirvana's album Nevermind to unprecedented heights. Who knew that teenage angst could be so profitable? The song became ubiquitous. Its distorted guitars and Cobain's anguished vocals infiltrating every crevice of society, from MTV to college radio, from shopping malls to high school dances. It was like the universe's way of saying, you can't escape your feelings. The song's success took the band by surprise. They probably thought, wait, people actually like this? They had tapped into something raw and visceral, a collective yearning for something real in a world saturated with artifice. It was like finding a diamond in a pile of garbage. They had become the voice of a generation yearning for change, for something more than the empty promises of the status quo, or at least a generation that really, really hated their parents' music. Nevermind, released in September 1991, became an overnight sensation. Who knew that a naked baby chasing a dollar bill would be the key to global stardom? The album's raw energy and emotional honesty resonated with millions, propelling Nirvana to the forefront of the music industry. Because nothing says relatable like screaming your lungs out about teen spirit. It was an album that defied categorization, seamlessly blending elements of punk, metal, and pop into a sound that was both familiar and utterly unique, like a musical Frankenstein's monster, but with better hair. The album's success was unprecedented, shattering sales records and transforming Nirvana from underground heroes to global superstars, because nothing screams underground like topping the charts. Nevermind reached #1 on the Billboard charts, dethroning Michael Jackson and signaling a seismic shift in popular culture. Sorry, Michael. But it turns out grunge beats moonwalk. The band's sudden fame was both exhilarating and overwhelming, like winning the lottery, but with more screaming fans and fewer yachts. They were ill-prepared for the relentless scrutiny of the media, the constant demands of touring, and the pressure to live up to their newfound status as the voice of a generation. Because who wouldn't want to be the spokesperson for teenage angst? Nirvana's music, once confined to the underground, was now everywhere. Like a catchy virus you can't get rid of. Their faces graced magazine covers, their videos dominated MTV, and their music became the soundtrack to a generation grappling with the uncertainties of a rapidly changing world. Because nothing helps you deal with existential dread like a good power chord. Nirvana's impact on music was immediate and profound. Like a wrecking ball to a sandcastle, their success ushered in a new era of rock music, paving the way for a wave of alternative bands like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains to break into the mainstream. It was like opening Pandora's box, but with more flannel. Grunge, once a subculture confined to the Pacific Northwest, became a global phenomenon. Its flannel shirts and ripped jeans, a symbol of rebellion and authenticity, and questionable fashion choices. Nirvana's influence extended far beyond the realm of music. They were like the cool kids who made everyone else feel like they were trying too hard. Their music and aesthetic became synonymous with the cultural zeitgeist of the early 1990s, a time when everyone was either disillusioned or pretending to be, a time of social and political upheaval, when the only thing more unstable than the government was Kurt Cobain's mood of disillusionment with the status quo and a yearning for authenticity and change, or at least a change in wardrobe. Their music gave voice to a generation grappling with issues of identity, alienation, and social injustice, and a deep-seated hatred for hair metal. Cobain's lyrics, raw and confessional, resonated with young people struggling to find their place in a world that often seemed indifferent to their concerns. Like a guidance counselor who just doesn't care. Nirvana's legacy transcended music. They became cultural icons, their image and music forever intertwined with a specific moment in time, a time when the world seemed on the cusp of change and everyone was just a little bit angrier, a time when the old rules no longer applied and the new rules were written in eyeliner and angst. Their music gave voice to a generation grappling with issues of identity, alienation, and social injustice, and a deep-seated hatred for hair metal. Cobain's lyrics, raw and confessional, resonated with young people struggling to find their place in a world that often seemed indifferent to their concerns. Like a guidance counselor who just doesn't care, Nirvana's legacy transcended music. They became cultural icons, their image and music forever intertwined with a specific moment in time, a time when the world seemed on the cusp of change and everyone was just a little bit angrier, a time when the old rules no longer applied and the new rules were written in eyeliner and angst. Amidst the whirlwind of success, a darkness began to grow, within the heart of Nirvana. And no, it wasn't just the lighting guy experimenting with shadows. The pressures of fame, the relentless touring schedule, and the constant scrutiny of the media took a toll on the band, particularly on Kurt Cobain. Turns out, being a rock star isn't all groupies and glitter. Cobain, a deeply private and introspective individual, struggled to cope with the demands of fame. Who knew that being adored by millions could be so exhausting? He felt increasingly isolated, his personal struggles amplified by the media glare. It's hard to find alone time when everyone's got a camera. His battle with heroin addiction, a closely guarded secret in the early days, became public knowledge, fueling a narrative of self-destruction that would follow him until his untimely death. Because nothing says rock and roll like a tragic downfall. The band's internal dynamics also began to shift. Apparently, even rock gods have bad days at the office. The creative tension that had fueled their early work was replaced by a growing sense of unease. Who knew that writing angst-filled anthems could be so angsty? Cobain, increasingly withdrawn and battling his personal demons, struggled to reconcile his artistic vision with the expectations of a global audience. It's tough being the voice of a generation when you'd rather just whisper. The seeds of discontent had been sown, and they were growing faster than a weed in a rock star's garden. Nirvana, the band that had come to symbolize a generation's yearning for authenticity and change, was teetering on the brink of collapse because nothing says authenticity like a good old-fashioned meltdown. The price of success, it seemed, was far higher than anyone could have imagined. And no, it wasn't just the cost of all those smash guitars. Kurt Cobain, the reluctant poster child for a generation disillusioned with conformity, battled demons unseen by the adoring masses. And boy, did those demons throw some wild parties. Behind the fiery passion of his music and the vulnerability in his lyrics, a deep well of pain and insecurity festered. It's like he had a VIP pass to the emotional roller coaster. Cobain was a complex soul, a walking contradiction of artistic brilliance and self-destructive tendencies. Think of him as a Picasso painting with a self-destruct button. He craved connection, yet recoiled from the spotlight's glare. Fame was like a bad Tinder date he couldn't escape. Fame, thrust upon him with the force of a tidal wave, magnified his insecurities, turning him into a recluse within his own gilded cage. It's like winning the lottery and then losing the ticket. The roar of the crowd, a deafening testament to his success, only amplified the silence within. A silence filled with the echoes of childhood traumas and the crushing weight of expectation. It's like having a rock concert in your head, but everyone's playing a different song. Cobain's art was his refuge, a raw nerve exposed to the world, a confessional booth amplified to stadium-sized proportions. Imagine your diary being read aloud at a Super Bowl halftime show. Through his music, he poured out his soul, laying bare his vulnerabilities, his fears, his rage. It's like therapy, but with a mosh pit. He sang of broken hearts and shattered dreams, of societal hypocrisies, and the emptiness of consumerism, basically. The stuff that makes you want to scream into a pillow. His words resonating with a generation grappling with their own sense of displacement. It's like he was the unofficial spokesperson for what the heck is going on. Yet, the more successful he became, the further he seemed to drift from himself. Success was like a GPS with no signal. He felt like an imposter, a fraud who had stumbled into fame and fortune, undeserving of the adulation showered upon him. It's like winning an Oscar for a movie you didn't even know you were in. This dissonance between his internal struggles and his external success only deepened the chasm within him. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that's missing a few pieces. Fame's seductive embrace often masks a darker underbelly. And no, it's not just the bad catering. For Kurt Cobain, the pressures of stardom, the relentless touring schedule, and the constant scrutiny of the media became an unbearable burden, like trying to juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle. He sought solace in heroin, a dangerous liaison that promised oblivion from the maelstrom of his life. Because, yoga just wasn't cutting it. The drug, an insidious serpent promising temporary escape, became both lover and tormentor. Talk about a toxic relationship. It dulled the pain, quieted the noise, but it also exacted a heavy toll. Like a really bad subscription service you can't cancel. His health deteriorated, his once vibrant energy replaced by a weariness that spoke of a soul stretched thin, thinner than a rock star's patience with a bad sound check. His addiction became public knowledge, splashed across tabloid headlines, fueling the narrative of the tortured artist. Because nothing sells papers like someone else's misery. Intervention attempts, well-intentioned but ultimately unsuccessful, only served to isolate him further, driving him deeper into the clutches of his addiction, like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The music, once a source of solace and release, became tinged with a sense of desperation. And not the fun kind you get before a deadline. His lyrics, once filled with youthful angst and rebellion, now hinted at a deeper despair, a weariness that spoke of a man struggling to outrun his demons and failing like a cat trying to catch a laser pointer. Amidst the chaos of fame and addiction, Kurt Cobain found solace in the arms of Courtney Love, the fiery frontwoman of the band Hole. Their love was a whirlwind romance, a collision of two kindred spirits drawn together by their shared artistic passions and their battles with personal demons. Just your typical love story. Their relationship played out in the glare of the media spotlight, became a tabloid fixture, a tumultuous mix of passionate love and public spats. The birth of their daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, in 1992 brought a brief glimmer of hope, like finding a $20 bill in your old jeans, a chance at redemption and a fresh start. Cobain, a man who craved stability and normalcy, seemed to find a sense of peace in fatherhood. He doted on his daughter, his love for her, a beacon of light in the darkness that threatened to engulf him, like a flashlight with dying batteries. He yearned to shield her from the pitfalls of fame, the destructive patterns that had ensnared him. Yet, the pull of addiction, the relentless pressures of fame, and the weight of his own internal struggles proved to be formidable foes. Like trying to win a fight with one hand tied behind your back. His love for Courtney and Frances, while a powerful force, was not enough to exorcise the demons that haunted him. Because, let's face it, even love has its limits. Section 4, The Unraveling, from in utero to isolation, or as Kurt might have called it, from bad to worse. Nirvana's third studio album, In Utero from 1993, stood in stark contrast to its predecessor, Nevermind. Think of it as the musical equivalent of a midlife crisis. Gone were the stadium-sized anthems and radio-friendly hooks, replaced by a raw, abrasive sound that reflected the turmoil brewing within the band and within Cobain himself. It's like they traded their platinum records for a therapy session. The album, a deliberate departure from the polished sound of Nevermind, was Cobain's attempt to reclaim the band's artistic integrity and maybe his sanity, to shed the skin of their commercially successful past. Songs like Heart-Shaped Box, Rape Me, and All Apologies were raw, unflinching explorations of pain, despair, and the dark underbelly of fame. You know, the kind of stuff that makes you want to hug your therapist. Despite critical acclaim, In Utero failed to achieve the commercial success of Nevermind. Apparently, not everyone was in the mood for a musical breakdown. Cobain, already battling addiction and disillusionment, seemed to retreat further inward like a rock star version of a hermit crab. His public appearances becoming increasingly erratic. Think of it as performance art, but with more crying. The band's European tour in 1994 was marked by cancellations and erratic behavior from Cobain. His health deteriorated like a rock star version of a bad hangover. His heroin addiction spiraling out of control. Because, you know, why not add some more chaos to the mix? He seemed to be on a collision course with destiny, and destiny wasn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. A tragic figure hurtling towards an inevitable end, like a rock and roll Shakespearean tragedy, but with more flannel. Section 1. The Final Days. A downward spiral and a cry for help. The year 1994 began with a palpable sense of dread for those closest to Kurt Cobain. It was like waiting for a Nirvana concert to start, but without the music and with a lot more heroin. His heroin addiction, a menacing shadow that had loomed over him for years, now threatened to consume him entirely. You could say it was the ultimate groupie. The once vibrant musician, full of life and creative energy, had become a ghost of his former self. His body ravaged by addiction, his spirit shrouded in despair. He was like a rock star Halloween costume gone terribly wrong. His final days were a blur of interventions, relapses, and desperate attempts to escape the clutches of addiction. Think of it as the world's worst game of hide and seek. In March 1994, Courtney Love, fearing for his life, staged an intervention at their Seattle home, because nothing says I love you like a surprise party with rehab brochures. Surrounded by friends, family, and fellow musicians, Cobain reluctantly agreed to enter rehab, a glimmer of hope in a landscape shrouded in darkness. Or as Kurt might have called it, a really bad tour stop. But the escape was short-lived. Rehab was like a hotel with really strict room service. On April 1st, Cobain walked out of the rehab facility. His departure, a haunting echo of the escape he desperately sought from the relentless pressures of fame, addiction, and the crushing weight of his own internal demons. April Fool's Day, indeed. He returned to Seattle, a city that had once embraced him as a hero, now a labyrinth of painful memories and missed opportunities. Like a really depressing episode of Where's Waldo? His movements during those final days remained shrouded in mystery. A tapestry woven from speculation and fragmented accounts. each thread adding to the enigma of his final hours. It's like the world's saddest scavenger hunt. Section 2, April 8th, 1994. A grunge icon found lifeless. The news, when it broke, reverberated around the world with the force of a sonic boom. Or maybe more like a grunge riff, gone horribly wrong. Kurt Cobain, the enigmatic frontman of Nirvana, the voice of a generation, was dead at the age of 27. Guess he really did want to be part of the 27 Club. The cause of death, a self-inflicted gunshot wound, only deepened the sense of shock and disbelief that gripped fans and fellow musicians alike. Talk about a mic drop. His body was discovered on April 8th, 1994, in the greenhouse above his Seattle home, proving once again that rock stars and greenhouses don't mix. A tragic end to a life lived on the edge of brilliance and despair, and apparently a really bad day. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of grief, confusion and disbelief, and probably a few bad Nirvana covers. The world mourned the loss of a musical icon and the guy who made flannel shirts cool. A reluctant spokesperson for a generation, grappling with disillusionment and angst, and really bad hair days. Cobain's music, once a soundtrack to teenage rebellion and angst, now took on a haunting new dimension, like a grunge ghost haunting your playlist, his lyrics echoing with a chilling prescience. Or maybe just a really good guess, the circumstances surrounding his death, shrouded in mystery and fueled by speculation, like a really bad episode of Unsolved Mysteries, became the subject of intense scrutiny and probably a few bad documentaries, igniting a firestorm of conspiracy theories that continue to swirl around his legacy to this day. Because who doesn't love a good rock and roll mystery? In the aftermath of Cobain's death, a handwritten note addressed to Boda, an imaginary childhood friend, surfaced, offering a glimpse into the turmoil that consumed his final days. Because when you're in a crisis, who better to talk to than an imaginary friend? The note, penned with shaky handwriting on lined notebook paper, was a raw and heart-wrenching confession of despair, a final message from a soul on the precipice, or maybe just someone who really needed a better pen. In it, Cobain expressed his disillusionment with fame, his struggles with addiction, and a profound sense of isolation. Fame, the gift that keeps on taking. I haven't felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music, along with really writing, for too many years now. He wrote, his words painting a picture of a man who had lost his passion, his connection to the very thing that had once given him purpose. Sounds like he needed a new hobby. Maybe knitting? He wrote of the burden of expectation, the pressure to live up to the image of a generation's spokesperson, a role he never sought nor embraced. It's tough being the voice of a generation when you just want to be the voice of your own shower. It's better to burn out than to fade away, he concluded, quoting Neil Young, a line that would become tragically prophetic. Or maybe he just really hated the idea of a slow internet connection. While the note seemed to point definitively to suicide, certain inconsistencies in tone and handwriting, along with unanswered questions surrounding the events leading up to his death, fueled suspicions that lingered in the hearts and minds of many. Because nothing says mystery like bad penmanship. In the years since Kurt Cobain's death, a cottage industry of conspiracy theories has sprung up, challenging the official narrative of suicide and offering alternative explanations for his untimely demise. Because, why let facts get in the way of a good story? Fueled by unanswered questions, inconsistencies in the official police report, and the enduring allure of the gone too soon narrative, these theories range from the plausible to the outlandish, and some are just plain bonkers. Some believe that Cobain's death was not a suicide, but a carefully staged murder, orchestrated by those who stood to gain from his passing. Because nothing says "I love you" like a murder plot. Courtney Love, his wife, and the mother of his child became a central figure in many of these theories, painted as a calculating manipulator who orchestrated his demise. Because who needs a happy marriage when you can have a conspiracy theory? Others point to the high levels of heroin in Cobain's system, suggesting that he would have been physically incapable of injecting himself with a lethal dose. Because apparently, even in death, Cobain was a multitasker. They argue that the note, often cited as definitive proof of suicide, was actually a farewell letter written during a period of deep despair, not a suicide note in the traditional sense. Because who needs clarity when you can have ambiguity? While no credible evidence has ever surfaced to support these claims, the conspiracy theories persist, fueled by the enduring mystery surrounding Cobain's death and the insatiable public appetite for narratives that challenge official accounts. Because who needs closure when you can have endless speculation? The truth, like so much else about Kurt Cobain, remains elusive, shrouded in a haze of speculation and unanswered questions. Because why let the truth get in the way of a good mystery? The death of an artist often casts a long shadow over their unreleased work, transforming demos and unfinished recordings into coveted relics, whispered about in hushed tones among devoted fans. It's like finding a treasure chest, only to realize it's filled with socks. In the case of Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, the vault of unheard material took on an almost mythical status, a treasure trove of potential masterpieces forever out of reach. Think of it as the musical equivalent of Bigfoot sightings. Rumors of lost albums, acoustic demos, and alternate versions of beloved songs swirled through the online ether, fueled by the insatiable curiosity of fans desperate to unearth every last shred of Cobain's genius. It's like a scavenger hunt, but with more angst and flannel. Snippets of unreleased tracks, often of dubious quality, surfaced on bootleg recordings and fan websites, offering tantalizing glimpses into the creative process of a band forever frozen in time. It's like getting a sneak peek at a chef's secret recipe, only to find out it's just instant noodles. The allure of these unreleased recordings lay not only in their rarity, but also in their promise of offering a more intimate, unfiltered glimpse into Cobain's creative process. Imagine peeking into a diary, only to find doodles and grocery lists. These were the raw ingredients of his art, stripped bare of studio polish and commercial considerations, a direct line to his soul. It's like seeing a magician's tricks revealed, only to realize it's just sleight of hand. For some fans, these unreleased recordings held the key to unlocking the mysteries of Cobain's final days, offering potential clues to his state of mind and the events leading up to his death. It's like trying to solve a murder mystery with a Ouija board. Each scratchy recording, each mumbled lyric became a potential Rosetta Stone, deciphered and analyzed for hidden meanings and premonitions of tragedy. It's like reading tea leaves, but with more distortion and feedback. You know you're right. A posthumous hit and a glimpse into the abyss. In 2002, after years of legal wrangling and heated debate among surviving band members and Cobain's estate, a previously unreleased Nirvana song, You Know You're Right, was released to the public because nothing says rest in peace like a courtroom battle. The song, recorded in January 1994, just months before Cobain's death, became an instant hit, topping charts worldwide and reigniting the debate surrounding his legacy and the circumstances of his death. Because who doesn't love a good mystery with their music? You Know You're Right was a haunting and powerful track, showcasing Cobain's songwriting prowess at its most raw and visceral. It's like he left us a musical ghost story. The song's lyrics, filled with anger, despair, and a sense of resignation, offered a chilling glimpse into the turmoil that consumed his final days. It's almost like he was saying, I told you so from beyond the grave. The song's release was met with mixed emotions. Some fans were thrilled, while others were like, really? Now? Some fans rejoiced at the opportunity to hear new material from their idol, as if Cobain had risen from the dead for an encore, while others felt it was exploitative, a posthumous cash grab that violated the sanctity of Cobain's final recordings, because nothing says respect like a posthumous release. Regardless of one's stance on the ethics of its release, You Know You're Right served as a stark reminder of the immense talent lost with Cobain's death, and a reminder that even in death you can still top the charts. It was a song that transcended the grunge label, proving that Cobain could still make waves from 6 feet under. A timeless piece of songwriting that cemented his status as one of his generation's most gifted and troubled artists, because nothing says legend like a posthumous hit. The battle for control. Courtney Love, the estate, and the legacy of Nirvana. The death of Kurt Cobain sparked a bitter and protracted legal battle over the control of his image, music, and legacy. Because nothing says, I love you, like a courtroom brawl. At the center of this storm stood Courtney Love, his widow, and the mother of his child, thrust into the unenviable position of gatekeeper to his artistic legacy. Talk about a full-time job. Love, a controversial figure in her own right, faced intense scrutiny and criticism for her handling of Cobain's estate. It's like being a rock star's widow wasn't hard enough. She was accused of exploiting his image for personal gain, because who wouldn't want to profit off tragic rock star? Of sanitizing his legacy to appeal to a wider audience, because nothing says punk rock like mainstream appeal, and of obstructing the release of material that she deemed too personal or damaging to his reputation, because some secrets are better left in the attic. The surviving members of Nirvana, Chris Novoselic and Dave Grohl, also became embroiled in the legal battles, because who doesn't love a good band breakup? The relationship with Love strained by creative differences, financial disputes, and the shared joy of legal fees, and the shared grief of losing their friend and bandmate, because nothing bonds people like mutual misery. The battle for control of Cobain's legacy reflected the complex and often contradictory nature of his life and art. A fitting tribute to a man who was never simple. He was a man who craved both connection and isolation, the ultimate introvert extrovert, who raged against the machinery of fame while simultaneously courting its embrace. Because who doesn't love a good paradox? The death of Kurt Cobain left a void in the music world, a silence that resonated far beyond the realm of grunge and alternative rock. It was like the universe's way of saying, well, that escalated quickly. For the surviving members of Nirvana, Krist Novoselic and Dave Grohl, the loss was immeasurable, a personal tragedy compounded by the public nature of their grief. It's like losing your best friend and having the whole world show up to the funeral uninvited. In the immediate aftermath of Cobain's death, both retreated from the spotlight, struggling to come to terms with the loss of their friend and bandmate. They probably wish they could just hit the skip button on life for a while. The weight of Nirvana's legacy, once a symbol of shared dreams and artistic triumph, now felt like an unbearable burden, a constant reminder of what they had lost. It's like inheriting a haunted mansion, cool in theory, but a nightmare in reality. The future seemed uncertain, the path forward shrouded in grief, and the shadow of their shared past, kind of like trying to navigate a maze blindfolded with a hangover. The music industry, ever eager to capitalize on tragedy, buzzed with speculation about their next moves. Because nothing says we care like trying to make a quick buck off someone's misery. Would they continue making music? Or would they just start a podcast like everyone else? Would they try to recapture the magic of Nirvana with a new frontman? Or would they realize that lightning rarely strikes twice, especially in the same band? Or would they retreat from the public eye, their musical careers forever intertwined with the band that had brought them both fame and heartbreak? Because sometimes the best way to deal with a mess is to just walk away and pretend it never happened. The answers, when they came, were as different as the musicians themselves, like choosing between a rock and a hard place, but with more guitars. Novoselic and Grohl, once united by their shared musical vision and the bonds of friendship, now found themselves on divergent paths, each seeking solace and meaning in the wake of unimaginable loss. Because sometimes the only way to move forward is to take completely different roads. Dave Grohl, Nirvana's drummer, emerged from the shadow of tragedy with a renewed sense of purpose, and probably a few more gray hairs, determined to honor Cobain's memory through the power of music and maybe avoid a midlife crisis. In the months following Cobain's death, Grohl retreated to a home studio, seeking solace in the familiar comfort of writing and recording music, and probably avoiding human interaction. He poured his grief, anger, and confusion into a collection of songs. Because therapy is expensive. Playing all the instruments himself, because who needs a band when you have control issues? A cathartic exercise that laid the foundation for his post-Nirvana career and probably saved him a fortune in in therapy bills. These demos, raw and emotionally charged, became the genesis of the Foo Fighters. Because why not start a band when you're already doing everything yourself? The band that would propel Grohl from behind the drums to center stage, where he could finally show off his hair. The Foo Fighters' self-titled debut album, released in 1995, was a critical and commercial success, proving that Grohl could do more than just hit things with sticks, showcasing Grohl's songwriting talent and his versatility as a musician and his ability to multitask like a pro. The album's blend of melodic hooks, raw energy, and introspective lyrics resonated with audiences who were probably just happy to hear something that wasn't grunge, establishing Grohl as a musical force in his own right and not just that guy from Nirvana. Over the next 2 decades, the Foo Fighters would go on to become one of the biggest rock bands in the world, selling millions of albums, winning numerous awards, and headlining stadiums worldwide, because who needs a small venue when you can have a stadium? Grohl, once the quiet drummer content to stay in the background, had become a charismatic frontman, because why be in the background when you can be the center of attention? His passion for music and his genuine connection with audiences, evident in every performance and probably a few broken guitars. Grohl's journey from tragedy to triumph with the Foo Fighters is a testament to his resilience, talent, and perhaps a touch of insanity. Chris Novoselic, Nirvana's bassist, took a different path in the wake of Cobain's death. Because, someone had to survive the 90s. Haunted by the loss of his friend and disillusioned by the trappings of fame, Novoselic stepped away from the music industry, seeking solace in his home state of Washington and exploring new passions, because apparently fame is only fun until it isn't. He became involved in local politics, driven by a desire to make a difference in his community and to use his platform to advocate for issues he cared about. Because why not trade one circus for another? He formed a band called Third Secret with Kim, the guitar playing from Soundgarden, exploring musical styles far removed from the grunge sound of Nirvana, because if you can't beat them, confuse them. While Novoselic never achieved the same level of commercial success as Grohl, he found fulfillment in pursuing his own path, one that led him away from the spotlight and towards a life of activism and community engagement. Because who needs money when you have principles? He became an outspoken advocate for campaign finance reform, forming a political action committee called Jam Pack, or Joint Artists and Musicians Political Action Committee, to raise awareness about the influence of money in politics. Because if you can't join them, beat them. Novoselic's journey after Nirvana was a testament to the enduring power of music to shape lives and inspire change, and to the fact that sometimes you just need a really good hobby. While he may have left the world of stadium rock behind, he never lost his passion for making a difference, using his voice and his platform to advocate for a better world. Because, let's face it, someone has to clean up the mess. More than 3 decades after their emergence from the rainy streets of Aberdeen, Nirvana's music continues to resonate with a ferocity that makes you wonder if they had a time machine. Theirs was a sound born of frustration, of a yearning for authenticity in a world saturated with artifice, like trying to find a real friend on social media. A primal scream that shattered the polished veneer of late 20th century music, much like a toddler in a fine dining restaurant. Kurt Cobain, the band's troubled poet laureate, became an unlikely icon, his anguished vocals and introspective lyrics giving voice to a generation grappling with disillusionment, alienation, and the search for identity, like trying to find the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle in a messy room. His songs, at once raw and melodic, vulnerable and visceral, transcended the grunge label, achieving a timeless quality that continues to speak to listeners across generations and cultures, like a really good meme. Nirvana's impact on music is undeniable. They ushered in a new era of rock, paving the way for a wave of alternative bands to break into the mainstream, like a hipster at a Starbucks, and forever altering the landscape of popular culture. Their influence can be heard in the music of countless artists who followed, from the raw energy of Foo Fighters to the introspective lyricism of bands like Radiohead and Arcade Fire, who probably have more feelings than A Teenage Diary. But Nirvana's legacy extends far beyond the realm of music. They became a symbol of a cultural moment, a time when the old rules no longer applied, like trying to use a rotary phone in the age of smartphones, when authenticity and raw emotion trumped polish and pretense. Their music gave voice to a generation hungry for change, for something real in a world that often felt artificial and uncaring, like plastic plant in a desert. And in doing so, they left an indelible mark on the world, a legacy etched in sound and memory, forever reminding us of the power of music to connect, to inspire, and to challenge the status quo, like a cat knocking over a vase just because it can,